Good afternoon, Senator Chang and members of the committee. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Diana Mataya. This is Georgia Callis, and we represent the Michigan Guardianship Association, which I'll refer to as MGA, so we can move along quickly. We are a statewide organization with approximately 200 members who provide guardianship services to over 15,000 Michigan residents. Guardianship is a very complex issue that is often misunderstood. When discussing the topic of guardianship, you have heard, I heard them as well, alarming stories that compare the current frequency of required visits to leaving a plant or a goldfish unattended for too long. We are asking that you reconsider this comparison. Comparisons like this highlight the misunderstanding of what a guardian's role actually is. A guardian is a person or agency who is given the responsibility to make certain decisions about the care of another individual who cannot make those informed decisions for themselves. A guardian is not a provider of services like cooking or feeding, administering medications, transportation, or housing. We do not feed fish. We do not change the water in the bowl. We do not change the soil for the plant. In fact, the statute prohibits us from providing those direct care services. A guardian's role is to arrange, coordinate, and monitor all services and providers to ensure that a person's needs are met. Those that are not attended to by others that we are coordinating are visited monthly, weekly, and daily when they are in crisis. All of us in this room have heard horror stories of vulnerable adults being taken advantage of by those entrusted with their decision-making. We could not be more appalled with those people's actions. As you know, the package of bills that is before you today was born of the AG's Elder Abuse Task Force, which began in 2019. The intentions of the AG are admirable. How do we protect our vulnerable citizens in a meaningful way so that this does not happen again? That package of bills, as they came over from the House, intended to fix the problems associated with some of the bad actors, but they fell short, and in fact would have driven many of our members out of the profession, unintentionally reducing protections. This is contrary to our common goal. It still remains that the new drafts of the bills leave us with a number of questions as to how some of the concepts would be implemented. We will need further clarification and language adjustments before we would be in a position to support the bills. A primary example of an issue with implementation and day-to-day practice, which is very important, is in the language regarding delegation of duties and decision makers. This language would have drastic, unintended consequences for two reasons. One, it is widely considered a best practice in the industry to use a team approach, which often includes assigning more than one decision maker to each person who we serve. This approach significantly enhances checks and balances that reduce exploitation, such as separating financial decisions from medical decisions. Two, and more importantly, having one decision maker means that each of our staff would be required to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. No one person should be required to do this, nor will they.
We can just wrap up with a couple more sentences.
Thank you. This is not a sustainable solution.
Can I give her my 3 minutes to let her just finish reading?
Sure.
Or she's just going to hand it to me and I'll do what she's doing. Okay. All right,
Sure.
thank you.
This back up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year is not a sustainable solution. We will not be able to retain staff, which is already quite difficult to find appropriate, ethical, appropriate staff to make these life-changing decisions. I would like to take this opportunity to address claims of rampant abuse in the professional guardianship industry. According to a study conducted by Virginia Tech University Center for Gerontology, and I quote, "Over 10 months, we prospectively gathered APS, Adult Protective Services, collected data on 400 substantiated cases of abuse by perpetrators. APS cites results from 6 geographically diverse states. Results indicated that of the perpetrators, 85% were designated power of attorney. 8% were guardians. 7% were representative payees. Almost all perpetrators were family members or trusted others. The Attorney General's own press releases over the last 5 years declared fraud by a guardian reflect the same trends. There are known ways to prevent or minimize the opportunity for the financial abuse summarized above. Additional reforms that would improve the system, could include the use of restricted financial accounts if a bond will not be ordered for non-professional guardians. We have the experience to know how to put barriers in place and where they belong. The MGA can be a source of ideas for real, impactful, and affordable reform, real-life antidotes, and best practices. Finally, we are proud to share with you that for many years, we have advocated for requiring state certification of guardians. We wholeheartedly agree that the lack of certification is a gaping hole in the system. Standalone certification legislation that we support has been introduced in the previous session as well as the current session. This would require criminal background checks every 2 years, continuing education credits, and passing the National Center for Certified Guardians exam, among many other requirements. Many states across the nation have adopted this system for certification, but Michigan's would be the most comprehensive. Last page. Hopefully you can see our goals are very similar. We understand and we agree with the intent behind the proposed solutions that have been brought to the table. However, the vulnerable adults of Michigan need for you to understand how the unintended consequences of the legislation as written today, combined with the continued lack of proper funding to serve indigent clients, will negatively affect the quality of the services that they receive. That's not what any of us here want.